Joining me now is President Trump's personal attorney, Christina Bobb. She was at Mar-a-Lago when agents were rummaging through the former president's residence. Christina, thank you for being with us tonight. Now, your reaction about the breaking news, absolutely. Your reaction about the breaking news tonight about these supposed nuclear documents that may have been in Mar-a-Lago and were the cause for concern and for the urgency of this search warrant in the Washington Post tonight.
Right. Well, you nailed it in your opening monologue. This is what the Democrats do. They don't have any good reason for doing what they did. The pathetic presser that Merrick Garland held for 3 minutes was insufficient. So they had to create fear. Normally, they should come out with exactly what happened and why and explain themselves. And if it was a good reason, they would have solid ground. They are not on solid ground. So they had to come up with something that would potentially terrify the American public into freely giving up their constitutional freedoms. You know, if we are on the verge of nuclear war, giving up the nuclear codes, maybe it's acceptable that they violated the president's constitutional rights. It was not acceptable, and they're trying to come up with reasons to make it sound appropriate and make it sound okay, because they don't actually have a good reason for doing what they did.
Okay, so Christina, just so I'm clear about this, I want to be really clear. Is it your understanding that there were not documents related to our nuclear capabilities or nuclear issues that had national security implications in the president's possession when the agents showed up at Mar-a-Lago?
That's correct. I don't believe they were, and if they thought
well,
they were...
do you know for a fact? Do you know for a fact they were? Have you spoken to the president about it?
I have not specifically spoken to the president about what nuclear materials may or may not have been in there. I do not believe there were any in there. The legal team had done a very thorough search and had turned over. We'd been very cooperative with the Biden administration and the DOJ and turned over everything that we found that we had. So it's my understanding on very good belief based on a thorough investigation that there was nothing there.
So, Christina, when you were there and the agents arrived, did you ask, can I accompany you on this grand journey through Mar-a-Lago? And they said no? Like, how did that play out?
I did. I actually believed that I could just follow them because that seemed like the appropriate thing to do. So I just started to follow them and was told I wasn't allowed to. And I said, I'm the president's attorney here on site. No one else had arrived at that time, and said, I should have the opportunity to observe your search and observe what you're doing. And they basically said no. And I tried to push a little bit, but I'm not going to push too hard against the FBI. So I backed off. But at no point during the day did they let me follow them or accompany them throughout the property.
Now, Christina, the president has been given until 3 p.m. tomorrow to decide whether he wants that warrant unsealed. What, if anything, can you tell us about that decision-making process? You know,
Sure.
Of course, the left is saying, well, if he wants to be so transparent, why doesn't he just get it all out there? And your response to all this?
Yeah, well, my response is it's President Trump's decision, and he can make that when he's good and ready to do it. But I want to remind everybody that it is the Biden administration that owes this country an explanation, not President Trump. It was the Biden administration that took an egregious step to violate constitutional rights of a president of the United States and invade his personal residence. And now they want to try to shirk that responsibility by just saying, well, why doesn't he release it? No. They owe us an explanation, and they can't get out of it that quickly. And I'm sure President Trump is going to make his decision. And I know that he bases his decision on what he believes is best for the country and what will bring us together and unite us. And I'm sure that that is the driving factor for his decision.
Christina, the scuttlebutt, because it always changes. Yesterday it was that Merrick Garland knew nothing about the raid. That was hilarious. And then today they sent him out to say, trust us, and everyone's being mean. And now there's a Secret Service agent, perhaps that's the one that saw this nuclear or whatever material, and he or she is the one that's helping establish that probable cause for the warrant. Tonight, what can you tell us about the Secret Service detail that was assigned to President Trump and concern that may have been what got this going?
Yeah. I don't believe that for a second. I think the Secret Service has a lot of professionalism, and I don't believe for a moment that the problem with this is on President Trump or anyone in his circle. I think it's a story that the leftist media wants to try to paint the picture that somehow there's division within the Trump camp. There's not. And to the extent that they think there's an informant or some other type of division that is causing this, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll reserve that judgment. But I think this squarely falls on the shoulders of the Biden administration, and I want to see what they got, because I don't think they have enough for their actions.
Well, they're certainly changing their story quite a bit in like a 72-hour period. Christina, when they were in Mar-a-Lago, now, I know the layout of Mar-a-Lago. I've been to Mar-a-Lago. Did they focus their search in the president's private quarters? It's a big club. I mean, there's a lot of space there. Or did they go all over the entire club? Because that's a lot of rooms and it's a lot of ground to cover.
Right.
And they had 30 agents or so, I know.
Right. So they told me that they were specifically looking at 3 areas. They were looking at the presidential office. They were looking at the residence, the private family residence, and then the storage unit that we've heard so much about, on the bottom floor. So I believe the search was contained to those 3 areas. That's what I've been told. I have no reason to believe that they went anywhere else. But because I didn't accompany them, I can't say for certain, but I don't think they went anywhere else.
I want to play a moment, Christina, from the Attorney General today. Watch.
The department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken.
Christina, is there any reason then legally why he can't tell us why a search became necessary?
Right. That's a really nice soundbite, and I think that that's how they're campaigning, and that's how they're running the administration. Because we were cooperating with them. We met with them. I was there when they came in June, and President Trump himself met with them, briefly, and said hello and said anything you need. And he pointed to the attorneys there and said anything they need, make sure they do it. And we had been cooperating to the fullest extent. And from that meeting in June, the next thing I heard was on Monday, where they said, you got to get down to Mar-a-Lago. They're raiding the place. And I thought, well, that's odd, because we had just said, if you need anything else, let us know. So I don't believe his statement. It sounds really nice, and it's a good principle that we should live by, but they don't.
Now, much was made about the safe, the safe cracker and so forth. But do we know, was there anything in the safe? Was it much ado about nothing with the safe? Did anyone even know how to open the safe? What do we know about it?
Well, I love the story because I actually couldn't accompany them, and so I couldn't see it. I couldn't see what they were opening. So we know about the story because of the CCTV, and the cameras were on, and so those in New York watching were aware. So I have to take their word for it. I know the president put the story out, so I have no reason to believe it didn't happen, but I wasn't able to witness it because I was pretty much relegated to the parking lot.
No, so when you were speaking with the FBI agents and the agents at the time, were they cordial? Were they, you can get a sense if someone's kind of embarrassed that they have to do something, or it's just like, thank you, move aside. Well, just give us some flavor. Initially, it started out a little heated. Simply, I was upset, and they were not excited to see me. So we had a little bit of an incident initially, just me wanting access to the warrant. They didn't believe they needed to even show me the warrant. So we fought about that, not for very long, maybe a minute, no more than 2. And I did have an opportunity to see it. They didn't give it to me. And then after we kind of worked through that, it was a long day, so there's no point in keeping it heated for too long. So only for a couple minutes there was a little bit of tension, and then it calmed down for the most part, and everything was fine. They wouldn't allow me inside anywhere, so I had to stand out in the heat for, I don't know, 8 to 8 hours or so, maybe 9 hours. And so eventually they were kind and offered me water because I was out there, but I would have appreciated the opportunity to wait in air conditioning. Yeah. Did they give you the inventory list before they left, or while they were doing the raid that they don't want to call a raid?
Right, the raid. We do have the inventory list, as you can expect. It's not particularly helpful. So yes, I kind of have the inventory list. They gave me the official receipt. But
you're going to give it to us tonight, really, Christina. We're happy to talk about it tonight for the next 40 minutes on the show. Yeah. Well,
I would love to.
Christina, we really appreciate your joining us. You're a young lawyer, and you were put in one of the most historic and I think egregious abuses of federal authority that I've seen in my legal career. a long, long time. But we really appreciate your joining us tonight and answering some of these questions.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.